Oh my gosh. Oh, and that's just great. That the safe state doesn't work again. So I have to do that all over freaking again. Yet again. Do that all over again. Yet freaking again. I have to do it all over again. Guys. I have to do that. I have to make all that progress yet again. Because the safe state's like, no, it's not gonna work. Because that's fair now. I did that all over again. Again. Oh, never mind. Thank freaking God. So never mind. I don't have to. Because I saved for a year, so that's good. Yeah, I know, King. I know, freaking King. I know you hate mosquitoes, but I don't hate them. I know you don't hate. I know you hate mosquitoes, but I don't hate them. So yeah. Please, I don't want to attack him. I really don't. I really don't want to freaking fight the spider. I love spiders. I really do like spiders. Don't. Welcome back, Xenorus. How you doing, man? How you doing, Xenorus? I love spiders a lot. Spiders are awesome. They're really cute too. Spiders are really cute. In my opinion, at least, spiders are really cute. Snakes are good too, though. Snakes are also cute. Come on. I don't mean to be rude, but like, come on. Like, really? You're scared of them? You're scared of those? And then you have me. I just love freaking everything. I love every animal, any creature, like all of it. How am I gonna do this, honestly? Oh, that's Plessy. Is interesting. That's Plessy. It's Plessy from Mario 3D World. Plessy from Mario 3D World. No, don't blow. Don't blow him off. Yeah. If it's a horde of spiders, then that would be not to me. Spiders, I find cute. I find spiders cute. I love worms too. I just love anything. I just love anything. I just how am I gonna get past this? Honestly, I don't think I will. Oh really? King? Hmm. It's hilariously stupid. What do you mean? Is it Musophobia, whatever that freaking one's called? The spider one? Not the spider one, the mouse one? Is it the freaking mouse phobia thing? Like I was saying, is it the phobia where like you're afraid of mice and that? Oh. Okay, I don't know, King. I don't know, King. What is it? Okay. King, Buddy King. Could you give the link to the video? Could you give a link to the Crypt video? Because then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna watch the video. I'm gonna watch the video and then I'm gonna end the stream because I'm done for the night. Thank you. Yeah, just for tonight. Just for tonight, man. I'll play more some other night. I'll play more some other night. Just the spiders thing. Just I don't want to attack the spiders, and I never will. I'm just done for now because I should have a break. Honestly, it's mostly the mosquito. It's mostly the mosquito, but I don't want to hurt the mosquito, so I want to go to bed and then let it let it do its thing, and then it leaves. Here we go, guys. Let's watch. I did not hit her. It was not true. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, why not? The Spooters. Hello, Mr. Spooter.
you watched Fast and Furious 8? It's a really nice movie, you know?
Oh, really? I haven't watched it yet. Tell me about it.
Okay, pay attention everyone.
It's a good video. It's a video is interesting. It's a very good video.
Today,
I mean, not a good video, but I mean, I actually haven't seen it before, but this is apparently like a really scary channel. It's apparently a really scary channel, and the good videos or whatever.
Arachnites. Please open your textbooks at page 88.
Hey, Siv, have you aware of last week's case?
What case?
There's a boy who's afraid of number 8, and they haven't cured yet.
I don't
Afraid
believe
of the
it.
number
Sounds
8, that
like
doesn't
a
make
hoax
any
somehow.
sense.
But
Yeah.
it's real.
To be honest, doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah.
Just can we listen to
No,
the
no,
classmates?
no, no,
Okay,
no.
Sam, get yourself up here and start cleaning up the whiteboard. You've been talking for too long.
Man.
That's not even how it works.
Okay, so arachnids are a class of joint-neck insects. All of the
I don't think the
arachnids
acting is way too bad. Like, honestly.
Number 8. Sam!
Huh?
Guys! Where is everyone?
Yeah, it's like a little movie. I like it. Blood? Where's that goo? It's a scooter. Oh, he's a very furry little one. No, or a big one, I should say. It's like a furry guy. He looks so odd. It looks like so CGI. Like, honestly, like you could clearly tell it's CGI. What was that? He was like, oh my god, this is actually kind of dumb, to be honest. Huh? Oh, hello again. That reminds me of Alien right there. No, what's it? Yeah, no, Predator. Sorry, Predator. Like where they open like the four mouths or whatever. I'm reminded of that. Scooters again. Honestly, I don't think it looks too scary. I'd hug it still. I'd still hug it. Yeah, I know, right? What was that walking? It was like. What? So there's multiple? So I'm guessing there's 8 spiders, isn't there? It's just 8. What's that face? Honestly, those noises are kind of cute. I'm not scared by those noises at all. He looks so scared, clearly. Look at that! Look at his face there! He's like,
Not real. This is not real. This is not real. This is not real. Not real. I'm not scared of you anymore!
Chill out, man. Are you okay?
What is happening over there?
Focus, please. Sorry, sir.
That was odd.
Are you okay, Steve?
Yeah, I'm fine, man.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Some species has converted to a sensory function, while in other species, different appendages can grow without.
Are you serious?
Again?
Again? What? Are you serious? What are you? That's so dumb. That is so dumb. Holy crap. That's really. That's really dumb. I'm sorry. No, I don't think it was copyright strikes. I don't think it was copyright strikes. It was just. I think something in the video YouTube didn't like. Like, like, YouTube was like, oh, that's too violent or something. I don't know. It was something, I guess, against the policies, I guess. I don't know. It was odd. It's something against policies. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, King. Don't worry about it at all, King, man. It's fine. It's not your fault. It's not your fault at all, King. It's just YouTube, really. So, I guess I can't watch the policy violation. So YouTube. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. No, no. I've reacted to the vids before and it was fine. Yeah, I was guessing it was this one. I'm guessing it was this one that got the stream suspended. Oh, I like that thumbnail. Oh, I like that thumbnail. There was a time where I was copyrighted for reacting to some Sonic stuff, though, so that's a thing. Yeah, could have been. So what the heck is that? That's creepy.
Right now, receive a $50 reward card when you test drive any new Hyundai sedan or SUV. Only at your local Hyundai dealer. Hyundai, the longer you look, the more there is to like. Learn more at HyundaiUSA.com.
You might be surprised to find out that eBay isn't
Alright,
just
see you,
for
man.
video games
See you,
and vintage
Xenorous.
sneakers.
Have a good night,
Did that say
Xenorous.
Spiv 350? You can also find all kinds of mysterious items, like this Cheeto that looks like a golden retriever, or this Cheeto that looks like Vanilla Ice, or this Cheeto
See
that
you later,
looks like
Xenorous.
Bold and Brash, aka belongs in the trash. Alright, the weird side of the hand. A haunted painting took the internet by storm. This is the story of the Hands Resist Him. Probably know seen a on that and things like Attack on Titan Season 3, the new Fruits Basket series, My Hero Academia, and pretty much all of the anime I say I'm gonna watch that I just never got around to watching it until now. And you can watch Crunchyroll on basically any platform you can think of. Your computer, your phone, your game console, your smart TV. Just go to crunchyroll.com/wank to start your 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium. The early days of eBay were primarily characterized by just how ridiculous some of the weird items on the site were, especially when you got to the more supernatural things. There were all sorts of supposedly magical or haunted knickknacks up for sale alongside depreciating Beanie Babies. At that point, it was almost entirely what the site was known for. For example, I vividly recall the owner of one website, I think it was xentertainment.com, had dug up a jar of dirt from his backyard and sold it on eBay as a magic kit for $20. But on February 2nd of the year 2000, a listing posted by an eBayer named Mr. No Reserve was taken a bit more seriously. It was of a creepy painting that depicted an angry-looking child standing next to an eyeless doll. Behind them was a door with several hands reaching out from a black void. The listing read as follows. When we received this painting, we thought it was really good art. Proclaimed. Now, we should achieve. The characters allegedly to go. Please judge for yourself. And these are the pictures of the characters allegedly fighting and the boy leaving the painting. To me, it just seems like they made the side of the picture a little bit red, but I have no idea how such effect could be achieved. They finished the listing off with a warning. Warning, do not bid on this painting to this, as I take 1,000 people that took the time to look at this image on eBay. I appreciate the more than 30 suggestions. $1,025. It was purchased.
Yeah, this is creepy. But I just gotta watch the end to see. I'm skimming through because I don't want to like be way too creeped out.
Thing. That generally would make an economic difference. It probably Felton's are.
Download the Stitcher podcast app now and start binging from ear to ear. Stitcher is a great free podcasting app, and it's easy to use. Plus, there are over 260,000 podcasts to choose from. Start listening today.
And just consider what I got a giant.
In the painting was based off a picture of him as a child. The hands reaching out from behind the door were intended to represent the alternate lives lived while dreaming, and the eyeless doll was intended to be the boy's guide through the various dream worlds. A very different narrative from the one presented by the original eBay listing. But that's not to say that the painting wasn't without its own set of mysterious circumstances. Both the owner of the gallery where Hands was displayed and the Los Angeles Times art critic who reviewed my paint a character actor named John Marley, who you might remember as the guy from the horse head scene in The Godfather. And while he's often mentioned as one of the deaths associated with this painting, it should be noted that he didn't die until 1984, over a decade after the painting was purchased, and most likely after it had already left his possession. And as it turned out, the lucky eBay bidder Ionia7 turned out to be the owner of Perception Gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Kim Smith. Although he had originally bought the painting to sell at a higher price, he had received a number of offers over the years and turned them all down, even some as high as 6 figures. Considering that he had only spent about $1,000 on it, that would have been a massive profit, so I guess at the end he just couldn't bring himself to part with it. To this day, it is still in storage at his gallery, only occasionally being displayed for special events, such as one that he held on Halloween of 2013 that was covered by Juxtapose magazine. And people's interest in the painting still continues. According to Bill Stoneham, he still receives several emails about it every single week. He's even been commissioned to create several sequels to the painting. A piece in 2004 entitled Resistance at the Threshold, in which the boy has now grown up into an old man and the doll began to transform. A piece in 2012 entitled Threshold of Revelation, which depicts the doll fully transformed into a real girl. And a prequel in 2017 entitled The Hands Invent Him, which shows us the view from behind the door in the original painting. In an interview with the Daily Dot, Bill Stoneham was asked why he thinks that so many people are still interested in this old, allegedly haunted painting, to which he responded, "We live in an age of science, of revelation and hard realities and hard facts, but we are still
Interesting.
a Chinese guy who ate a baby." Good night.
It's time to join the podcasting wave. Download the Stitcher Podcast app now and start binging from ear to ear. Stitcher.
So last night, I think because I saw these pictures of these really detailed Ninja Turtles movie action figures, I wound up falling down this really deep rabbit hole about everything Ninja Turtles. In particular, I was looking up all kinds of things about the Ninja Turtles comics. Like a lot of people my age, I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan as a kid. I remember so clearly being like 7 or 8 years old, and I went to my friend's birthday party. And at this birthday party, he had a clown, and at some point the clown offers to either write or draw on us with these markers that he had. So I have the clown give me like a blue Leonardo wristband thing, and I want him to write Ninja Turtles on me. And somehow he managed to spell ninja wrong. I don't know if it was some kind of a clown joke, or he just didn't know how to spell ninja, but I'm pretty sure I didn't say Niger Turtles. The point is, we were at the height of the Ninja Turtles craze, but my focus was almost entirely on the cartoon and the action figures. Aside from one issue of the comics I had that forever burned Cuddly the Cowlick into my memory, I knew almost nothing about the comics. But even then, from what I can tell from the tiny tastes of the comics I would get from different Ninja Turtles media, I could tell that they were very different from the cartoon. In fact, not only were the comics totally different from the cartoons, but they were two separate comics universes. The Ninja Turtles Archie comics and the Ninja Turtles Mirage comics. And both of those were very different from each other too. And strangely, probably the biggest gateway for me learning about the different Ninja Turtles comics was the game Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters.
Oh.
As the name implies, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters
I know about
was
this
a
game. It's
fighting
really
game.
weird.
Well, actually, it was 3 different fighting games.
Yeah.
You see, the Super NES,
Oh, really?
the Genesis, and the NES versions were all very different from each other.
Really?
The Super Genesis. Well, actually, it was 3 different fighting games. You see, the Super NES, the Genesis, and the NES versions were all very different from each other. And it's the Super NES version, which is the one that I had, that I think contains the biggest mystery of all of these games.
Really?
I think what really made Tournament Fighters a special game was that it took characters from all the various comic universes and the cartoon and put them all together in the same game. Of course, you've got the 4 Ninja Turtles, Shredder, and the Rat King, who existed in all 3 of these continuities. Then representing the Archie comics series, you have War, who is this purple dinosaur-looking guy who honestly, at the time, I used to confuse him with Triceraton. You have Armagon, who's some kind of a shark guy, but it's not a street shark, he's a futuristic space shark. And then there was Wingnut, who was some kind of a bat guy from outer space who looked like a superhero, and him I was actually familiar with because he crossed over into the cartoon very briefly. As
Oh,
for
really?
characters that were exclusive to the cartoon, you just had Chrome Dome, who is this samurai-looking killer robot guy. But it was really the other two characters in this game that got me curious about aspects of the Ninja Turtles universe that I was previously unfamiliar with. First, there's the character Karai. Now, when you look in the
Oh, I
Ninja
heard about
Turtles
them.
Tournament Fighters instruction manual, every character has a description, a drawing, and what their
Yeah, I heard
goals
about.
are in the
I know
tournament.
about Karai.
But when you look at Karai, there's just a red box that says restricted. Very mysterious. And then, of all the characters, and keep in mind this is a game that includes Shredder, and it includes the Rat King, Karai winds up being the last boss. Now, as someone who at the time, 1993 when this game came out, considered himself to be a hardcore Ninja Turtles fan who had seen every episode of the cartoon, had a lot of the action figures, and the ones I didn't, I knew what was out there. I had never even heard of this character that was somehow so important that she was made the final boss of a game. Clearly, I actually knew nothing about Ninja Turtles. What I would find out later was that Karai was actually in there to represent the Mirage Comics continuity of Ninja Turtles.
What?
In fact, at the release of the game, she was a very new character, having also debuted in 1993. Karai, at least in this continuity, was a Japanese boss of the Foot Clan. At the time she's
Really?
introduced in New York, the Foot Clan is in disarray because Leonardo killed Shredder. This leads
Really?
to a power struggle for control of the New York Foot
Holy
Clan, and
crap.
Karai comes to New York to set shit straight. And since that story arc, the character's gone through a lot of different changes in different continuities. Sometimes she's Shredder's daughter, sometimes she's Splinter's daughter, sometimes she's a love interest for Leonardo, which, okay, I know that a turtle's got a big schwanz, and I'm not going to show it to you, but you can look it up or you can trust me, but you're going to get salmonella. Is it really worth it? So after learning about all these interesting twists and turns that had happened to Karai throughout the history of her character, I thought back to one other character in the game that I didn't know about. That character is Asuka. Asuka is a scantily clad lady I didn't know about. That character is Asuka. Asuka is a scantily clad lady ninja whose goal in the tournament, according to the instruction manual, is she is a master of ninjutsu and wishes to own her own dojo. And after finding out all the interesting things that I did about Karai, her role in the Foot Clan, her different origin stories, I figured surely this other character would have just as rich and complicated of a background. And I was wrong. Officially, as I would find out, Asuka is a character who was created exclusively for the Super
Really?
NES version of Tournament Fighters. But something about that just didn't smell right to me. You have this game that's very consciously making the effort to combine different characters from different versions of the Ninja Turtles universe, and rather than put some shine on another lesser known character or put in someone everybody knows like Casey Jones, they decide to put in some random Mai Shiranui cosplayer for no apparent reason. I mean, maybe they just needed some more butt cheeks in the game, but the Genesis version solved that by throwing April O'Neil in what appears to be a Blaze Fielding from Streets of Rage costume. In fact, there is a theory that the reason why Asuka exists is that at some point they were going to put April O'Neil in the Super NES version.
Really?
Then they decided that they were going to use her to move the story along instead. But that doesn't make all that much sense to me because surely by the time that they're already putting characters into the game, you would think they would have some idea that they're going to be using April as a story NPC. And also, it's a fight.
I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back. Be right back. Alright, I'm back.
Game. It's not as if having her in the story, but then having her also be playable would be some big immersion-breaking thing that would ruin the game. This is a genre where it's standard for characters to fight differently colored versions of themselves. I don't think it'd be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
There's also a theory that Asuka was brought into the game to try to appeal to the Japanese market. And in all
you're right.
fairness, they did give the Japanese market some extra Asuka butt cheeks. But and in all fairness, they did give the Japanese market some extra Asuka butt cheeks. But that's more to do with American censorship policies. But ultimately, it's not as if Asuka was ever front and center in any of the promotional
Yeah,
materials.
I find it interesting though,
But
honestly.
ultimately, it's not as if Asuka was ever front and center in any of the promotional materials. I don't think people in Japan, where Ninja Turtles was already pretty popular, would be like, hey, like, I'm on the fence about this Ninja Turtles game, but hey, now they got this Japanese chick in there, so let's buy it. That's probably the real reason that Asuka was put in this game wasn't discovered until 17 years after the game came out.
Really?
And it was in 2010 when a beta version of the game found its way online. In this beta version, there's two characters who aren't present, Wingnut and Asuka. At least it was believed that they weren't in it until it was discovered that they could be accessed by using codes. They were incomplete versions of the characters, but they were present. Well, kind of. You see, there is one interesting change to Asuka. In the beta version, she was named Mitsu. And while Asuka was supposedly a character who was made up just for the Super NES version of this game, Mitsu is the name of a character who already existed in the Ninja Turtles universe.
Really?
She wasn't from the Mirage comics, she wasn't from the Archie comics, and she wasn't from the cartoon. She was from the movies. So in March of 1993, when Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters was already in development, the third Ninja Turtles movie was released. In this movie, the Ninja Turtles go back in time to feudal Japan, where they find themselves entrenched in a conflict between a tyrannical ruler and a rebel faction. This rebel faction is led by a woman named Mitsu. Now, with the Ninja Turtles movies being a huge success up until this point, and with Konami making an effort to combine all of the different Ninja Turtles continuities in one game here, it's a no-brainer that they would have to include somebody from the movies. And with Turtles 3 coming out mere months before the game did, it would make sense for it to be someone from that movie. But unfortunately, as you might already know, the third Ninja Turtles movie was a massive flop, both commercially and critically. While it didn't necessarily lose money, it vastly underperformed its predecessors. Essentially, this movie was the canary in the coal mine for the decline of the Ninja Turtles' popularity. Nothing good could possibly come from putting this character in the game and reminding everybody once again of what a failure that movie was. But now, with all that being said, even in the beta version, this character looks very different from how Mitsu looks in the movie. It's possible that Mitsu was replaced by Asuka very early in development and they only came up with a new name right before the game came out. That's hard to tell for sure, but if we had access to some concept art or maybe an earlier beta, that might tell us the truth. Perhaps the plan with including her in this game was to get Mitsu ready to go into the other Ninja Turtles continuities. After all, just look at Karai, who has had, at this point, so many different versions and different continuities with different backstories. Why not Mitsu? I don't think it's too far-fetched that there might have been bigger plans for this character had Ninja Turtles 3 not been such a huge disappointment. But that's all I have to say about that for now. If you like this video, check out my video about the Blockbuster World Video Game Championships, which actually included Tournament Fighters as a game. I'm out of here.
Morning.
How are you?
Good.
You thirsty?
Yeah.
The world could love your business. But first, it needs to exist. With Shopify, it can. Shopify, let's make you a business.
familiar with the fact that a lot of the signage in the school in Silent Hill was actually taken from the movie Kindergarten Cop. There was a period of my life where I
It's giving
basically had a complete
Street
mental
Fighter
map of
game.
every... There was a
Really?
period of my life where I basically had a complete mental map of every single arcade machine in a 2-mile radius from my house. A vast network of pizza places, comic book stores, and laundromats. And when one of these machines changed, it was a big deal. And it was the summer of 1992 when the word started to spread about a weird new Street Fighter 2 arcade machine that had popped up at a laundromat by my house. A Street Fighter 2 machine where you could shoot Hadoukens midair and change your character right in the middle of the match. And of course, this sounded completely ridiculous, like one of those my uncle works at Nintendo type stories. At this point, we were already living in a post-Shenlong world, and I definitely wasn't believing this without seeing it with my own eyes. So I went out to that laundromat to look for this Street Fighter 2 arcade machine, and sure enough, it was actually real.
Really? Oh yeah, I think I've heard about this. It's like a really weird, like
Between the
bootleg.
release of Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition and Street Fighter 2 Turbo, there was a really strange version of the game that could be found. You could shoot projectiles in the air or
That's
spam them
hilarious.
all over the place. There was basically no cooldown, so you could fill
Yeah,
up an entire
I've
screen
heard about this bootleg before. It's
with
really
Sonic Booms
interesting.
or Hadoukens. You could switch characters mid-match just by pressing the start button. And it was also substantially faster than a standard Street Fighter 2 machine. If you ever encountered one of these Street Fighter 2 machines in the wild, it probably blew your mind just as much as it did mine. And considering how much the arcade scene was fraught with hoaxes and lies and misinformation, you probably didn't believe it until you saw it with your own eyes either. It sounded like something that was too good to be true, and yet there it was. I only got to play it a handful of times because for some reason the old lady who ran that laundromat didn't like people coming in if they weren't there to do laundry. Actually, now that I think about it, that still pisses me off. Like, they always had the newest stuff at that laundromat, like NBA Jam, Mortal Kombat, I think they were the first place around here to have Tekken, but like, why would you get all the newest, best games if you don't want people to come and play the games just to do the laundry? It makes no sense. But anyway, the point is that despite the fact that I only played it once or twice, it stuck with me for years because there was just something about the spectacle of it. Like, obviously, it was completely broken, objectively not that great of a game, something you would never find at a tournament, but it leaves an impression on you, especially when you're a kid. But that machine was basically gone as fast as it showed up, and anybody else who hadn't seen it with their own eyes that I would tell about it, they would either think I was full of shit, or that I was talking about Street Fighter 2 Turbo. But it wasn't Turbo, and I knew what I saw, but eventually years passed, and I kind of just forgot all about it. It wasn't until years later when I was looking for MAME ROMs that I happened to come across something titled Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition. As soon as I saw that name, the memories of that machine came back to me, and I knew that that had to be the game I played, and sure enough, it was. And after I knew the name, I looked it up and found out that this, of course, wasn't some obscure Queens, New York exclusive. Tons of people around the world played this exact same version of Street Fighter. But what exactly was this game, and where did it come from? If you look at the title screen of Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition, you see the logo that has rainbow colors, which is where it gets its name from, but it still just says that it's made by Capcom. And there's no physical branding from another company on the machines or any of the hardware. But if you look inside the code of Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition, you'll find a hidden line that says, distributed by Hungshi Enterprises in Taiwan. But with that in mind, I think it's safe to say that the old lady at the laundromat who didn't want gamers in there wasn't going to Taiwan in search of the finest Street Fighter 2 secret versions. So how does a game like that wind up there? As it turns out, Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition wasn't its own standalone machine. Rather, it was a simple modification to the already existing Champion Edition hardware. Essentially, this was the very first ROM hack that a lot of us ever encountered, and amazingly, didn't make the characters naked or wearing clan robes. Changing a standard Champion Edition machine to a Rainbow Edition machine was a very simple process. Because the chips containing the game's code were socketed, all a person needed to do was pop out the old Champion Edition ones and pop in the new Rainbow Edition ones. Don't even need to solder anything. And in addition to how easy it was to convert a vanilla Champion Edition board to a Rainbow Edition board, counterfeiting was also rampant. Because Street Fighter II was such a runaway success, Capcom just couldn't keep up with demand for more machines. And it's believed that at some point there were several times more fake Street Fighter II machines out there than legitimate ones. And this became such an issue that Capcom started placing ads about it in trade magazines. The success of Street Fighter II Champion Edition has sent counterfeiters scurrying to make an easy profit using Capcom's proprietary, copyrighted, and trademarked material by manufacturing, selling, or operating counterfeit versions of our game. Counterfeit in this case means any Street Fighter II Champion Edition PC boards, parts of PC boards, chips, graphics, or other items containing our proprietary material that did not originate from Capcom. Counterfeits are illegal to make, illegal to sell, illegal to operate. Counterfeiting hurts our entire industry. It stifles the research and development necessary to produce top quality products. If someone offers you a deal too good to be true on a Street Fighter II Champion Edition, it probably is. It's very likely that Rainbow Edition machines weren't found in obscure places because the owners were looking for the ROM hack. Instead, it's likely that they were simply offered Rainbow Edition machines at a cheaper deal than a legitimate Street Fighter II Champion Edition machine. Eventually, Capcom would work internationally to crack down on these counterfeits and hacks with some degrees of success. Although Hung Shi was never named specifically by Capcom, it's likely that they were one of the operations shut down by the Taiwanese police. But that's not where the story of Street Fighter Rainbow Edition ends. In fact, the existence of Street Fighter II Rainbow Edition likely changed the entire trajectory of fighting game history. Meet James Goddard. James Goddard was a hardcore Street Fighter II fan who became so involved in the community that popped up around the game that he wound up running the first officially sanctioned tournament. And running this tournament was the beginning of a working relationship with Capcom. This relationship would eventually bring James to the development side of the games industry, and he was the one who pitched the idea for Champion Edition. Considering the overwhelming success of Champion Edition, and I believe to this day it's considering the game.
That is amazing. I never knew that, but that's really cool.
Industry, and he was the one who pitched the idea for Champion Edition. Considering the overwhelming success of Champion Edition, and I believe to this day it's still the most successful Street Fighter game, if James had something to say to Capcom, they would listen. And this put him in a unique position when the hacks of his game started to circulate. He visited an arcade in San Jose, California to give this game a shot. He hated it. Rainbow Edition came out, the Taiwanese ROM upgrade with all the crazy fireballs in the air and the helicopter kicks working in the air, just everything broken. Super fast, super broken. We started hearing how these things are getting installed and operators are earning money off of them, but we're not getting any of the action. So I go down to, I don't know, Galaxy Arcade, I think it was in San Jose. I go and I take a look at this Rainbow Edition, I spend a good 4 hours playing it, looking at it and going, man, this is just garbage. On one hand, it's kind of like, woo, look at these crazy-ass fireballs in the air. And on the other hand, it's just like, but it's so unbalanced. It wasn't until he went and played the original Champion Edition again that he revised his stance. I sit down to play against my coworker Joel Pambid, and the weirdest thing happens. He picks Guile, I pick Zangief, I go to play, and oh my god, the game felt like it was underwater. I had just spent the last 4 to 6 hours playing Rainbow Edition at 25% speed increase, so Champion Edition felt like shit. It was so slow. For the next 2 hours, I could not shake that, and it threw my timing off. It was just kind of this oh my god moment where I went,
this guy in the video.
Rainbow Edition is not all the fire. This oh my god moment where I went, the real threat of Rainbow Edition is not all the fireballs in the air and the craziness. The threat is the speed is addicting and it changes everything. James wrote a report about these games that he sent to Capcom and eventually pitched the idea that would turn into Street Fighter II Turbo.
Yep.
And at first he was met with tons of resistance. Capcom just did not want to make this game.
Really? Oh god, I'm really sorry, Black. I'm really freaking sorry about that, Black. That's scary. I'm really sorry. That's not good. Oh no. I'm really, really sorry. I'm really, really sorry, Black. I'm really, really sorry. Oh god. No.
Gameplay would completely ruin the timing and the balance.
Hope
I felt that it would
whatever that happened
the
to
gameplay would completely ruin the timing and the balance. They felt that it would change Street Fighter from a game of reacting to your opponent's choices to trying to predict what they're going to do ahead of time. Furthermore, since James was a Zangief fan, they thought that he was just biased and wanted to speed the game up to make his slow character overpowered. But after some arguing, Capcom decided to just give James's idea a shot. So they ran a playtest with a modified sped-up version of Champion Edition. Capcom Japan was really mortified when Turbo in Japan was super popular. There was a playtest where we showed up and there were kids freaking out, and that was kind of the end of the controversy. They just let me do what I wanted to do after that because it worked out. Despite their initial misgivings, the Japanese developers simply could not deny the success of James's suggestions, and thus Street Fighter II Turbo was born. And even though it was little more than a slightly upgraded Champion Edition, that was the game that introduced fighting game fans to the kind of fast-paced action that we've come to expect, especially from the Street Fighter series. As great and as classic as the original Street Fighter II games were, if you go back and play them today, they really do feel like James described, like you're underwater. And there's a chance that nothing would have changed were it not for a group of opportunistic Taiwanese hackers. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy old arcade stories like this, you'll probably enjoy my Mortal Kombat 2 videos. Check those out.
Oh, really, Daniel? I'll take a look. Really?
Still.
Be right back. I'm gonna get my charger. Yeah, just stay indoors and away from windows. Exactly. Stay safe, man.
Doesn't. Still. Doesn't feel like this is over. And I'll never be whole again.
Oh, thank God, this is the work. It was 16, huh?
This Dr. Clark is a complete ghost, and I can't even say for sure he's a he.
Really?
Snake, what took you so long? We'll talk, but not here.
Really? Really? Oh my god.
Cuz, hurry, I need Fulton recovery.
You want me to say it like that?
Cos. Wait a minute, I am Cos.
Fulton
recovery.
Cuz, I need Fulton recovery as soon as possible. Where's my Fulton recovery?
It's at the Waxin Barracks.
Where's that?
I have no idea who that is.
Call ID.
Let's get hiding on the line.
Come on, let's have a...
Don't play me like a damn fiddle.
Oh, I already have.
Snake. Snake! Snake!
Tip, how's it going?
What was it all for? If the boss has some plan, what is it?
Oh?
Oh, Mr. Kojima! Surprise!
Now I see why you asked me if I liked snakes.
Oh my god, this is getting like really intense.
You erased me 2 times before. Today, what the third? What's a Russian gunship doing here? I have no idea. But it looks like our little diversion got their attention.
Yeah, well, I don't really remember what I recorded. I mean, it was basic Bomberman sort of shout-outs, but they had me do both Solid Snake, like younger Solid Snake, and older Big Boss.
Old
And
Snake.
so, well, we didn't do Old Snake. I mean, that's a specific guy.
Yeah.
That's Old Solid. In this whole weird on Snake.
It's all, you just gotta distinguish by facial hair. Who has the full beard, who has the mustache, who's clean shaven. That's the way I keep it straight.
That's right. So I think it was clean shaven, Solid, and bearded Big Boss, and so that was kind of cool. I got to do 2 different, old Snake voices.
That's really interesting.
guess everybody in the chat also desperately wants to know about what you're teasing on Twitter. Do you want to tease them some more?
No. No, Kaz sent me a tweet saying, Snake, I have a mission for you. You know, send me a private message. So I spoke to him last night, and he goes, my Twitter is exploding. And I was like, yeah, well, that's what happens, man. So, message. So I spoke
on Twitter. Do you want to tease them some more?
No. No, Kaz sent me a tweet saying, Snake, I have a mission for you. You know, send me a private message. So I spoke to him last night, and he goes, my Twitter is exploding. And I was like, yeah, well, that's what happens, man. So, no, we'll leave it a mystery for now.
I like that.
I know many of you have been awaiting an intel drop on the Metal Gear Solid film project. Some of you might say we've kept you waiting, huh? Unfortunately, that data was lost behind enemy lines, hidden in the code for a Soliton radar. But don't worry, it's not over yet. Snake is on his way to retrieve it.
Who that is.
Call ID.
Let's get hiding on the line.
Well, I have to sign off. Snake is calling again. To all the fans out there, we just want to say thank you.
Campbell told me about the situation here. I thought I might be of some use. There's no one I'd rather have in a foxhole than you.
That's really interesting.
If you enjoy watching our videos, then consider supporting us on Patreon. As you may know, our videos are non-profitable, but with your support on Patreon, you can now help us improve and evolve our channel. In doing so, you'll be able to benefit from exclusive behind-the-scenes footage, sneak peeks from our upcoming videos, early access, and many more. Head over to patreon.com/PythonSelkin for more. Until we meet again, Python and Selkin out.
This is really interesting, honestly. Yeah, I did subscribe, Daniel. Why wouldn't I? That was a cool video. That was a really cool video. You're gonna show me something? What's it, black box? What are you gonna show me, box?
When the subject of legendary Japanese game developers comes up, one name who absolutely must be in the conversation is Platinum Games co-founder Hideki Kamiya. As the director of undeniably classic games like Resident Evil 2 and the original Devil May Cry, as well as more recent modern classics like Okami and Bayonetta, Kamiya's legacy and influence in the world of action games, specifically character action games, is completely unparalleled. One only needs to look at this photo of Kamiya as a young man standing next to his mother to know that there's never really been anyone quite like him in or outside of video games. But one of the things that makes Kamiya so legendary, and one of my personal favorite things about him, is his Twitter account, @PG_Kamiya. Specifically, his relationship with Twitter's block feature. Now, to call PG_Kamiya, specifically his relationship with Twitter's block feature. Now, to call Kamiya a prolific Twitter user is almost kind of an understatement. The man averages nearly 60 Twitter posts per day, occasionally going up into the high 400 range, and at the time...
You set a series of events into motion, bringing you in contact with the Borg, much sooner than it should have come. Now, perhaps when you're ready, it might be possible to establish a relationship with them. But for now, for right now, you're just raw material to them. Since they're aware of your existence.
They will be coming.
You can bet on it.
Maybe Q did the right thing for the wrong reason. I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
He's a cool villain. He's a good actor, too. Oh! That's why you just run and you don't stop to shoot. Just keep running and you don't freaking stop to shoot. It's name how to destroy the boat. What do you mean? There was no ball for them.
Borg signature detected. Prepare for assimilation. Relevant technology.
attempts to assimilate them were all direct assaults. They failed. So we've created a
Oh,
more
really?
surreptitious strategy.
That's cool. What do you really think, Daniel? Borgs are like interesting villains.
Not by speculation. Sell it if I had any. That's a solid cube. How something like that can sense us coming, block us, move when we move, it beats me.
Ship.
Hailing frequencies opens.
This is the captain of the Enterprise speaking.
Warning.
We are report. Captain James Keeper of the USS Enterprise and CC-1701. You will lower your shields and prepare the order. Resistance futile. Engage tractor pulse.
Overloading, sir. Phaser crew stand ready. Phaser crew stand ready. Ahead, half speed. 5-0. Radiation from the short end of the spectrum increasing. Knowing we can take only a few more seconds of this. Phaser!
We are the Borg. Existence as you know it is over. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own.
What?
I speak for the Borg.
Oh, jeez. Why did not Daniel? I did not respect that forward, Daniel. I've never watched Star Trek Saturday, but it seems like a cool series.
We will proceed to Earth. And if you attempt to intervene, we will destroy you.
This video's publication, Kamiya is actually right on the verge of posting his 200,000th tweet. And out of those tweets, a very, very, very large chunk of them contain one key phrase: blocked. Now, blocking someone on Twitter is effectively the nuclear option. It makes it so a person can no longer reply to your tweets, search for your tweets, or even look at your tweets. And for most Twitter users, blocking someone tends to be sort of a last resort. Kamiya, on the other hand, uses blocking differently. He blocks virtually everyone.
fans of his games, other game developers, journalists, his own followers, even people who ask him a question that he's already answered elsewhere. Basically, by sending a tweet to Kamiya, you run the risk of him being annoyed by it, and there's a very, very, very high chance he'll block you for it. And what's special about Kamiya is that more often than not, he won't simply block an offending user. He will do it publicly in the form of a manual, old-fashioned quote retweet, where he says blocked, and then copies and pastes your tweet into the following text behind RT, basically turning your crappy tweet into a spectacle for his 100,000 plus followers to laugh at. Now, as you might have guessed, people have occasionally tried to troll Kamiya intentionally over the years to get blocked by him, but often this backfires, leading to Kamiya just deftly disposing of these people in a spectacularly public fashion. One of my favorite examples of this is when someone once told Kamiya he couldn't make a good game if he tried, to which Kamiya responded, "And what can you make? Poop every day? Ha 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 ha." Another one of Kamiya's magnificent public executions came after a Twitter user asked him, "Do you feel disappointed about having developed Bayonetta 2 for inferior hardware?" To which Kamiya replied, "Isn't your mom disappointed with her inferior son?" In fact, Kamiya eventually grew so infamous for his reputation for powerful English language comebacks on Twitter that it actually crept back around into the world of video games. For years, one of Kamiya's favorite replies to questions he didn't feel like answering was, quote, "Ask your mom." He deployed this reply hundreds and hundreds of times on Twitter, often in reply to fans asking whether or not he'd ever want to see his character Bayonetta in Super Smash Bros. This made it immensely satisfying after Bayonetta was announced as a DLC fighter for Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, and the trailer included a line where Bayonetta says this.
If you need to learn how to talk to a lady, ask your mum.
Oh, so that's why.
A reference to Kamiya's tweets that was both in this trailer and in her in-game
I didn't even realize it was a reference to that.
It's not his snarky replies, it's his reputation for
Because I
blocking
never even knew he said that.
raised Kamiya's Twitter status to legendary. And interestingly, you don't even have to be trolling to end up blocked by Kamiya. Indeed, it appears that many of the people who end up blocked by him were sincere fans of Kamiya's work, asking him an innocent, if possibly annoying question. When it comes to who Kamiya decides to block, it appears that intent doesn't even enter into the equation. All that matters is if Kamiya found your tweet irritating. And I think there's something kind of admirable about that. Here's a few examples. You say you love one of his games? Blocked. Ask him to quit blocking people? Blocked. Ask him a question he's answered before, or a dumb question, or a joke question, or even just leave him tagged in your conversation with a friend? Blocked. Blocked. You're all blocked. None of you are free of sin. Now the obvious question here is why? Why is Kamiya so generous with his use of the block button? I've been looking into this for a while, and interestingly, it appears that Kamiya was not always this way on Twitter. If you go back through all of Kamiya's tweets and look at the very first time he ever used the word blocked in a tweet, it was 7 years ago in August 2012 when somebody asked him if he'd ever blocked somebody for being annoying. His reply, ironically enough, was, quote, "Never. Basically, I don't want to do that." That was in 2012, and looking forward just 2 short years later, Kamiya had transformed into the block-loving Kamiya that we know and love today, blocking people for all their annoying questions, calling them insects and brainless idiots, just the classic Kamiya. So what happened? How did Kamiya go from a guy who never wanted to block anyone to one of the most prolific blockers in the history of Twitter? Now, usually we would just have to speculate about this, but in 2015, Kamiya succinctly explained his exact reason why he blogs so aggressively in the form of a 4-panel comic he personally illustrated. In the first panel of the comic, we see a dumb-looking, slack-jawed boy, snot hanging out of his nose, wearing a shirt labeled poster, in front of a computer with Twitter on his screen. In the second panel, the boy recklessly slams both of his hands onto his keyboard, mashing out the question, "Fave game?" In the third, we see the boy's question fly out of his house in the form of an enormous red arrow, and then in the final panel, we see dozens and dozens of similar, actually identical arrows flying from all over the world, all converging on the Osaka prefecture of Japan, where Platinum Games is headquartered. Now, as funny as this comic is, it also gives us an unprecedented bit of insight into Kamiya's relationship with Twitter. See, from the perspective of the kid in the cartoon, he's just asking an innocent and well-intentioned, if very unoriginal, question to one of his favorite game developers. But from Kamiya's perspective, this is a question that he's been asked hundreds of times, a question he's been inundated with basically every day for years, and just one question of many that he is absolutely tired of fielding. See, I love this comic because it points to a fundamental flaw in the way Twitter works for public figures. Anyone with a sizable Twitter following knows what it's like to get the same questions over and over, but to me, the fascinating part of this is Kamiya himself and his unique zero-tolerance response to this problem. I sincerely believe that there is nobody else on Earth who uses Twitter in quite the way Kamiya does. Take, for example, his follow list. Kamiya only follows one person, and that's Japanese model Maho Hashimoto, who once cosplayed Kamiya's character Bayonetta at the premiere of the Bayonetta animated movie. Somebody once asked Kamiya why he only follows one account, and Kamiya replied, quote, "'Cause polygamy is prohibited in Japan." The perfect answer. And just in case it isn't clear by now, I absolutely adore the way Kamiya uses Twitter. To me, it feels as though Kamiya has this very singular idea of how Twitter ought to work, and anytime he encounters any friction between his idea of what Twitter should be and what Twitter actually is, he just insists on his version of the website and then bends the product to his will in order to accommodate it. One fantastic example of this is Kamiya's usage of a third-party website called Twilog. Now, at first, Kamiya would actually answer repeat questions from time to time, although in a somewhat angry way, as seen in this tweet, quote, "As I've said 100,000 billion billion times, I hate horror games / movies 'cause scary and grotesque." Eventually, though, in Kamiya's ongoing effort to combat the repeated questions problem, he decided he would demand that people search through all of his old tweets before ever asking him anything. But because Twitter's built-in search function is so janky and inconsistent, Kamiya decided to use a third-party Japanese Twitter searching service called Twilog and require everyone to search it before sending him a message. And to spread the word about this policy, Kamiya would frequently tweet something to the effect of, "Repeat, check my Twilog before asking something." Kamiya would tweet this message every day for years, all in an effort to just not see the same questions over and over. But sadly, it made no difference. Kamiya once lamented the state of his Twitter replies thusly, quote, "I wonder why I get lots of posts every day, in spite of being the cutest and politest guy in a galaxy who makes beautiful and wonderful games." See, the very things that annoy Kamiya most about Twitter, being asked repetitive questions, being trolled, people having 50, 60, 100 tweet-long conversations that they refuse to untag you from, these are things that most public figures have just accepted over time as unfortunate shortcomings of the Twitter platform. But instead of just ignoring these problems like the rest of us, Kamiya takes a much more active approach, wielding the block button like a weapon, blocking everybody who violates his rules, and actively purifying the platform until all that remains is his personal ideal vision of Twitter. Or, as Kamiya once wrote in 2014 after going on a particularly intense blocking spree, "Now my timeline becomes immaculate." Kamiya has been at this for a long time now. As best I can tell, he first began publicly announcing his blocks roughly 5 or so years ago, and the entire time I've been following him on Twitter, I've been haunted by a singular question. Exactly how many people has Hideki Kamiya blocked? This question has consumed me for years, in large part because the answer is just completely unknowable to anybody except Kamiya himself. The way Twitter is set up means that the size of an individual user's block list is private information, and it's completely invisible to everyone but the account holder themselves. The only clue that Kamiya has ever given us as to the size of his block list was once in 2014 he mentioned that it was more than 101 people, an oblique reference to his Wii U game, The Wonderful 101, and also a surprisingly low number that has no doubt grown quite a bit since 2014. Over the years, I've come up with a few different techniques that we could possibly try to find out the size of Kamiya's block list. One of my early ideas was to just count every single time he ever tweeted the word blocked to try to conjure up a rough estimate, but Kamiya himself has said that sometimes he'll get bored of writing the word blocked over and over and will simply block people in silence without announcing it, so that number would be useless to us. My second idea was to simply send Kamiya a tweet asking him how many people he's blocked on Twitter. And as it turns out, I am not the first person to have this idea. Over the years, multiple individuals have tried to figure out the size of Kamiya's block list, usually by asking him directly over Twitter if they can just see it. And I think you can guess what his response was. I'm just wondering how many people you have blocked. First person to have this idea to us. My second idea was to simply send Kamiya a tweet asking him how many people he's blocked on Twitter. And as it turns out, I am not the first person to have this idea. Over the years, multiple individuals have tried to figure out the size of Kamiya's block list, usually by asking him directly over Twitter if they can just see it. And I think you can guess what his response was. I'm just wondering how many people you have blocked. Blocked. How many people are on your block list? Blocked. Can you show us your block list? Blocked. Is there any way to screenshot your block list? I'm curious how many people are on it. Including you? Thanks, idiots, for feeding my block list. : D. Now, the way I see it, these people who were slain in the line of duty while valiantly trying to uncover this coveted piece of info are heroes. They all died in an honorable way at the hands of Kamiya's block hammer. But I've always personally been careful to avoid ever tweeting directly at Kamiya so as to not meet the same fate as those who fell before me. I am, as of the time of recording, not blocked by Kamiya on Twitter. Let's see if that changes after this video. Who can say what's going to happen? But I found myself in a real predicament here because the only person who could answer this burning question was Kamiya himself, but I also knew that if I tweeted at him, that would end my 5-year streak of remaining unblocked. I had to come up with some way to ask Kamiya how many people he blocked, but asking him over the internet was simply not an option. So slowly I realized there was only one solution here, and that would be to ask Hideki Kamiya in person. Having run out of options and desperate for some sort of resolution, I knew what I had to do. So I booked a plane ticket and got on a flight to Tokyo in search of answers. After a grueling 12-hour flight, which mercifully I was asleep for most of, our plane finally touched down at Tokyo's Haneda International Airport, and from there I actually had yet another plane ride ahead of me. So I took a short bus ride from Haneda Airport's international terminal to the domestic terminal and then boarded yet another airplane, this time to Osaka, a plane which, incidentally, I feel like I should mention, was Star Wars themed for some reason. Anyways, soon enough, I found myself arriving in Japan's Kansai region. Upon arriving in Osaka, I paused briefly to regain my composure and also to admire this gachapon vending machine hybrid that was painted to look like a train that they had waiting at the Osaka train station, which, by the way, upon examination, exclusively sold merchandise themed around this character Maruka Toyokawa, who is the Osaka Railway anime girl mascot. Thought that was worth mentioning. Anyways, the reason I was at the Osaka train station is because I still had one more ride ahead of me, an hour-long train ride from Osaka to Kyoto, until finally, at long last, I arrived at my Airbnb and just collapsed. Now, if you're wondering why my final destination was Kyoto and not Osaka, where Platinum Games is headquartered, there's a very good reason for that. See, every summer in Kyoto, Japan, there's a small independent game festival called Bit Summit, where both Japanese and international game developers gather to show off the games they've been working on to both the press and the public. But the 2019 Bit Summit Festival had one major difference from all the years prior. This year, for the first time ever, Platinum Games would be having a booth at the festival where they would be selling exclusive Platinum Games merchandise, some of which was previously only available to PG staffers. Now, the scary thing about this was that as best as I could tell, Kamiya never said conclusively whether or not he would be in attendance at Bit Summit. Who follows Kamiya on Twitter knows that the man loves to retweet virtually anything, especially things related to Platinum Games. So ultimately, I had no way of knowing whether or not Kamiya would actually be there. All I could do was cross my fingers and hope for the best. The next day I woke up in Kyoto, and with a couple hours to go before the beginning of Bit Summit, I began looking for some sort of distraction. I was really struck by how beautiful the city of Kyoto was. I'd barely ventured outside of Tokyo in all my trips before this, and I was surprised by just how much I loved this city. I spent the whole morning just strolling around, visiting temples and coffee shops, and it was a surprisingly effective distraction for what was to come. But before long, I knew that day one of Bit Summit was beginning, and it was time for my mission to truly begin. I arrived at the Miyako Messe Convention Center, scenically located on the beautiful Lake Biwa Canal with the picturesque backdrop of the Daimonji mountain range behind it, and I began my trek into the expo hall. Now remember, this was my first Bit Summit, my first time ever in Kyoto, and this festival was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was a massively packed show floor where small doujin games by indie Japanese developers shared floor space with large booths from companies like Nintendo and Sony. I walked a quick lap around the Bit Summit show floor, and at first, Platinum Games was nowhere to be found, and I began to actually worry. I thought to myself, had I somehow misunderstood? My mind flooded with irrational thoughts. Had the language barrier gotten the better of me? And had I somehow accidentally looked at the map from a previous year's Bit Summit? And it was right as that panic started to really set in, right as I was walking past the PlayStation booth for the first time, that I spotted it. The Platinum Games booth. And standing in front of that booth, I saw something that I never thought I would get the opportunity to lay my own two eyes on, an unmistakable neon orange bandana that belonged to none other than the likes of Hideki Kamiya. I had found him. Having set my sights on my target, there was still one major obstacle that I had to clear, and that was the language barrier. I don't speak a word of Japanese, and this was a relatively sophisticated question I had to ask him. This is where one of the greatest miracles of this journey transpires. Incredibly, there was one thing about Bit Summit that I had not realized before arriving, which was that because it's a very international event, the festival actually employs a stable of English to Japanese interpreters to help the media conduct interviews. As luck would have it, just a few feet from the Platinum Games booth, I found a small group of Bit Summit staff, one of whom was wearing a lanyard marked Interpreter. I approached them and I told the interpreter what I had in mind, laying out the exact question I had for Kamiya and what I was hoping to accomplish here, and thankfully, she agreed to help. Together, this interpreter and I walked towards the Platinum booth and towards Kamiya, and I honestly had no clue what would happen next. I had seen how quickly Kamiya had dispensed of those who'd asked to see his block list before, and I began to feel certain that I had traveled all this way for no reason, and that Kamiya would meet my request with a simple no. The translator explained to Kamiya what I was asking in Japanese, and then... Wow! Amazing! Wow, thank you so much. That's so cool to see it. Thank you, Kamiya-san. Thank you so much. There it was. So cool to see it. Thank you, Kamiya-san.
So many, wow.
There it was. Kamiya's block list contained 17,398 people. I thanked Kamiya for his time, I thanked the interpreter for her time, and I walked away. I was shell-shocked, not only because I had just become the first person on Earth that Hideki Kamiya had ever revealed this forbidden number to, but also by just the sheer size of that number. 17,398. The number rattled around in my head. I struggled to grapple with the scale of it. If you will, allow me to put this number, 17,398, into perspective. I want you to picture Radio City Music Hall, the largest indoor theater in the world. I want you to imagine filling Radio City Music Hall completely to its maximum capacity, no empty seats, a fully sold out, jam-packed show. Now, I want you to imagine doing that 3 times in a row. That is how many people Hideki Kamiya has blocked, one person at a time, manually, by hand, on his Twitter account. That is a mind-blowing number. For the entire rest of my trip in Kyoto, I continued to grapple with this incident. What drives a man, I wondered, to block 17,000 people? Something about it felt incongruous with the man I had just met. I mean, however brief my interaction with Kamiya was that day, I found him to be warm and friendly, nothing at all like the acerbic character he plays on Twitter. So then, why is Kamiya's Twitter the way that it is? Why spar with trolls and block people en masse? Ultimately, there's only one person who knows the true answer to that question, and that is obviously Kamiya himself. But personally, I have my own theory. It's only very recently that we've begun to have serious conversations about the toll social media can have on mental health, particularly for people who live their lives in the public eye. Every public figure with an online presence has to deal with some form of abuse from strangers, and we're told over and over that it comes with the territory, that it's just part of the job, that we're better off just ignoring it and never feeding the trolls. But the wonderful thing about Hideki Kamiya is that he doesn't accept that. When I look at Kamiya's Twitter, I see a man fiercely defensive of the one small corner of the internet that is entirely his. A man who won't let himself be dehumanized by people who would never say these types of things to him in person. The
Hi,
thing about
Fuso.
Kamiya
How you
is
doing,
that
Fuso?
whether it's people
How you doing,
actively
man?
trolling him or even just asking
Hope you're
him
doing good,
thoughtless
Fuso.
questions, he never holds back. He says exactly what he's thinking on Twitter at all times and
Hope
unflinchingly
you.
curates his online experience until all that's left is the good parts. Hence, my timeline becomes immaculate. And while people understandably gravitate towards Kamiya's more combative tweets when discussing his internet presence, there's also another side to the man that often goes completely ignored.
Huh?
My favorite example of this comes from 2017, when news broke that Kamiya's Xbox-exclusive game Scalebound had suddenly been cancelled partway through development. By all accounts, Scalebound was a really big deal for Kamiya personally. He had first established the concept for Scalebound over a decade ago back in 2006 alongside Platinum Games co-founders, and this was set to be the first game Kamiya had been in the director's seat for since 2013's Wonderful 101. Scalebound was a game that Kamiya sank at least 4 years into the development of, so when the game's cancellation was announced, it wasn't surprising that Kamiya took to Twitter to discuss it. But what was surprising was that instead of his signature anger, Kamiya took to Twitter with a heartwarming apology. As you may have already heard, Scalebound has unfortunately been cancelled, he wrote. I'm very sorry to everyone who was looking forward to this game. I'll work extra hard to never let you down like this again, so I hope you will keep watching over us in the future too. Immediately after posting this message, Kamiya was swarmed with supportive, positive, loving messages from fans, and an hour later, Kamiya posted one last tweet to share his final message of the day. I thought I would get lots of savage messages, but in reality I'm getting lots of warm messages. Thank you. Followed by a crying cow emoji, which I think it's fair to say is a pretty rare sight from Kamiya. Now, this moment is obviously touching, but I think it also represents the thing that we find so appealing about Kamiya, and that's his vulnerability. Whether it's cruel messages from strangers trying to hurt his feelings, or messages of support from fans during one of the hardest moments in his entire career,
Congrats,
Kamiya
Daniel.
always responds wholeheartedly. It appears to be just who he is. While working on this video, I reviewed the footage of my encounter with Hideki Kamiya, and the last time I looked, something jumped out at me that I hadn't spotted the first time through. If you look closely, at the very end of the clip, right after Kamiya shows me his block list of 17,000 people, and if you look closely, who he is. While working on this video, I reviewed the footage of my encounter with Hideki Kamiya, and the last time I looked, something jumped out at me that I hadn't spotted the first time through. If you look closely, at the very end of the clip, right after Kamiya shows me his block list of 17,000 people, and right after I tell him that it's amazing, in the upper left corner of the screen, for exactly one frame, Kamiya smiled. He was proud. At the end of the day, I think Kamiya's Twitter fascinates us because there is something beautiful about watching somebody unapologetically be themselves. Or, as Kamiya himself once said, you gotta be you. Only one in the world. Real quick,
Hey! Uber? LAPD.
Whoa, you've been getting a great ride.
Real quick, I'd like to thank this video's sponsor, OnePlus. Now, if you haven't heard of it, the OnePlus 7 Pro is this...
Alright, I'm gonna end the stream now. Thank you all for coming to the stream so much. This was a great stream, and can't wait to see you in the next one. When that next one will be, I don't know. But we will see. I love you all a lot, and always will. Always will, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Nightbox. Oh, I'm glad you had fun, Daniel. That's really good to hear. Good night, Daniel. And I'm so glad you had fun because I had fun.